This has been Kinney, publisher of Business North Carolina, and recently we gathered some leading experts and executives in the transportation industry to discuss some various topics on transportation and logistics in North Carolina, including how the industry reacted to last year's COVID pandemic, challenges, opportunities, and innovations that took place as a result of COVID-19. And we also talked a little bit about what we can look forward to in 2021 for the industry. So here's a snippet of some of that discussion, and we hope you enjoy it. Looking over the past year, I know that there's been all kinds of different changes, opportunities, challenges. And so from your overview, from your specific overview, what was that like? And Mike, if it's okay, since you're kind of represent all of transportation, kind of give us an overview if you don't mind.
Sure, absolutely. Probably the biggest change for us at NCDOT was one of revenue, in that we are almost exclusively, probably 80% of our revenue comes from some sort of motor fuels tax. And I'll just say when Governor Cooper suggested that North Carolinians stay home in March, they did. And we saw a dramatic drop off in the amount of vehicle miles traveled, in the amount of gas consumption. And I think we finally estimated that, for the last 3 months of the previous fiscal year, for basically April, May, June, our revenues were down about $350 million. And so, as you probably know, we were already experiencing, some cash issues arising out of the storms in 2018 and then the MAP Act settlements in 2019. So to some extent, the COVID was the straw that broke the camel's back. We were managing along, but just to have $350 million evaporate, and it's not like that, that money's ever going to come back, because you're not going to, make 4 extra trips to the grocery store in August, because you didn't go in May. So that was obviously a real challenge with us, but fortunately, we were already, like, I guess the right way to put it, we were already on war footing, in terms of managing our finances because of the other 2 issues. So we were able to adapt and, trim spending more. And then when the legislature, while this was going on, the legislature was in session, and we were able to work with the legislature and the governor's office to be able to do a funding package, which involved readjusting our budget and also extending the ability to sell some bonds, which we have been able to do in the last part of 2020. And so the good news is that our revenues are healthy now, but it was quite a roller coaster there when COVID first started, and that really impacted all of our modes of transportation. And some modes were getting assistance from the federal COVID area, but some weren't. In that, when the United States Congress passed the initial COVID Relief Act, I think they sent some money to airports, which I know Kevin appreciated, and transit. They sent some money to transit, but a lot of other modes did not necessarily get that direct infusion. And I think the choices they made really, were passenger related, so to speak. So some of the freight modes, didn't really get the same kind of funding in that initial round as others. So they were hurt like we were in general at NCDOT. We also obviously were, like every entity that employs people, we were worried about our employees and their health and how they worked. And so, like every other employer, we made the transition to having a lot of people working from home. And that was certainly a change. I know, I'd go in the the transportation building in downtown Raleigh there, and usually there's probably 500 plus people working in there, and there'd be 4 cars in the parking lot. It was mine and the secretaries and 2 or 3 others there that were needed to be there for legislative things. So obviously that was a big concern there, was to keep productivity up, but also worrying about our safety, because we have a number of employees who are those essential frontline workers, from the folks in the DMV offices who interact with the public on a daily basis, and the folks in the divisions, in the highway divisions, that are out responding when trees are down on the roads, those kind of things. So we wanted to make sure that we structured our work environment so that those folks could be as safe as possible too. And I think we've been largely successful in that, and still being able to provide good service. I was in about a month ago to get my license tag renewed, and I was impressed with how DMV had it set up so that folks were spread out, and there was partitions between everybody. Everybody was wearing masks and all that. So it's been quite a year of changes, both financially and operationally.
Yes, absolutely, for sure. Well, Kevin, that was a good segue. Can you tell us a little bit about how the year affected PTI? I'm sure there was a major impact for sure, but can you give us some insight into exactly what happened?
Yeah, well, Mike started off by saying the biggest impact was to the bottom line, and we had the exact same problem, obviously. But I'll tell you it this way: on April the 18th, we hit bottom water. That day, 75 people got on airplanes to leave here to go somewhere. On a normal April the 18th, when it's on a Saturday, that's a slow day, 3,200, 3,300 people. So we're about went to zero, is the way I always look at it, about 2% or so. It was bad. It's really bad. And it's not much better now. We're running at about 70% down at this point. And we're typical of just about every airport, if it's not a hub. The hub airports are doing a little bit better through this. But even the Raleighs of the world, that size of airport, are not doing any better than 60 to 70% down at this point. I guess a little bit of, and all that, we had to go through all the same things, obviously, that Mike was explaining. Have some folks working from home. Fortunately or unfortunately, though, probably about 70% of our staff can't work from home. We have to have firefighters, we have to have police, we've got to have maintenance folks. So we had some interesting challenges to make sure that everybody was safe. But just like everybody else has, we did what we needed to do. But a bit of a silver lining, I guess I would say, with our airport, that once again, we're the one that's not like the others to some extent, because of all of the non-airport or let's call it commercial service flying related jobs that are here. Two really good examples: HAECO and FedEx. They've actually had great years throughout this dilemma, because FedEx is pretty easy. Everybody knows what's going on there. FedEx and Amazon and every company that delivers packages are doing really well. And I just reported to our board 2 days ago, FedEx January this year over January last year was up 38%. That's before anything even started. January last year was a banner month for us. So they're just going crazy. And then with HAECO, the first thing that happened with the airlines is they started taking airplanes out of the sky, right? They put them on the ground all over the place. That first week, 2-3 weeks, all we were getting were phone calls from airlines. How many planes can you take? How many planes? I mean, literally, we were looking at closing taxiways, closing runways. At one point, we had taxiways closed. We had 60 or 70 airplanes that were here on the ground. But the beauty of it is that all of the airplanes that we got were from American and from Alaska Airways, both of whom are customers of HAECO, and both of whom decided to put certain airplanes on the ground forever out in the desert, but certain airplanes just needed to be maintained. And what a great time to maintain the airplanes. So the ones that were coming up on time for maintenance came here, and that kept all of those HAECO people busy this whole year long. And there's still 6 or 7 over there and another 10 out here. So there's still a bunch of them to go. really cool, I think, sidebar where, so we didn't fare quite as badly as some of the other airports probably as a result of having that employment.
Well, you guys have always, it's almost have been diversified in certain things as well too, which has been really good. And I thought about that. That's probably, that was, that allows you to delve into something else,
Yeah, we're hedged. That's the way I look at it. We're hedged.
without a doubt. Great. Well, Amanda, can you expand or elaborate a little bit more in terms of aviation from that standpoint, and how the past year has gone for the aviation industry in the state?
Yes, sir, absolutely. So bringing it out statewide, and understanding that we have a very unique airport system, and that, my favorite saying, if you've been to one airport, you've been to one airport. And so with that being said, they all maintained operations with what they were able to provide. As a state, within Division of Aviation and the services we provided, we really had to make adjustments to what we would do in the field. And so, as Chairman Fox mentioned, opening up that virtual community to be able to correspond and provide those services to our airports, ensuring that we had key staff members in meetings, whether the commercial service airports were meeting to discuss their current position, and allowing us into that to be able to then understand how we could be of assistance. Just as Kevin mentioned, with the aircraft fleets that were being grounded, trying to stand up a database of what assets were available at our airports in the state in the event that we received the call to help facilitate some of those locations. Looking at mentioning with the CARES Act and the funding there, our airports did receive funding. And so our grant administrator had to, I know you love this word, Annalee, they had to pivot, and they had to work very quickly to set those up so that we could get that money out to the airports where it was needed for them to help sustain their operations with that funding. Looking at some of our airport development projects, there are some silver linings there. The beauty of slowed down operations is that they now had room for those developments. They were able to make adjustments with how they were structuring, and in some cases, they were even able to accelerate those developments because of that lack of passenger access, if you will. So, for me specifically, we did see a decline in project activity, knowing that, especially for aviation, the condition that the industry was in, there would be this transition to acquisitions, mergers, consolidations. You're looking to hold things until you understand what the market is going to do and what those trends are going to be and how it's going to be forecasted for them to be able to come out of it strong and remain resilient. Looking at our system as a whole, I feel that we represented well, in alignment with that national average. Granted, I know Kevin is stating that a lot of our airports were showing that, 70% decline, but that's still pretty much right in alignment with that national average, and in some cases better than what the national average is, with the data that's being reported out of FAA. And then, of course, specific to general aviation, you saw that initial decline, as Kevin mentioned, April, May, maybe a little bit into June, but then they rebounded really quickly. They actually saw increased military operations. They saw an increase in business aviation with charter planes, that transient traffic. They also saw most recently an increase in some of that, what we would consider leisure travel, to especially the coast and the mountains, because we have very beautiful portions of the state that, regardless of where you are, you want to visit. And so there again, COVID impacts have been significant for us in our system, but there are different things that our airports have done to stay resilient and to represent well in North Carolina.
Thank you, appreciate it. Rick, from your perspective, trucking, that aspect, the past year, it could be a mixed bag, I would imagine, in the sense that there weren't as many people on the roads, but that also probably opened up more thoroughfares for truckers and trucking, or is that not the case? How did last year affect that industry?
It did, and we had to, we had to adapt pretty quick. One thing, that when we went right into the COVID and we knew that it was a slowdown, and I'll give Kevin a shout out that PTI has been my airport. My travel is about 80% travel around the country and international, and I always flew out of PTI. And I made a lot of friends and relationships that were greatly affected doing that, going through the Delta Gate and so forth. And that's just part of the COVID but one good thing, and just let me say this with Kevin, I'm glad to see that they made all those improvements and so forth over there. And I'll be flying there next week. So hopefully I'm going to add to the revenue. So hopefully we can get back to normal. But back to trucking. We had to make adjustments. Number one, you take a truck driver, usually comes to in North Carolina, and Chairman Fox, we certainly appreciate the job that you do and your team is doing in North Carolina. But we had to make adjustments real quick. A truck driver goes to a facility, and I'll use a Walmart facility because we have them stationed throughout the state. We used to go in, deliver, pick up our bills or bill of lading and see the people. All that changed last March. We were not able to go into the buildings. We were not able to interact with the folks in all the distribution centers. And also one thing that has changed that we have those trucks are still going to the grocery stores, but most the fast food restaurants are just drive-through only. And when they started that, their business increased. I know one of the large fast food, we service one of the large fast food industries in the United States. They're headquartered out of Atlanta, and their business has increased, but they couldn't get the raw material, they couldn't get their supplies to their stores. So they had to start their own distribution center. As a matter of fact, we're picking one up. They're gonna build one here in Medon. But back to the truck drivers and so forth. We knew we had a problem going into COVID in March and April, and some of the things for the over-the-road truck drivers coming through the state, they started shutting down the welcome centers, and they started shutting down some of the truck stops, and drivers had to have a place to go, drivers had to have a place to stop and rest and so forth. So we had to get legislature and had to get Washington and Raleigh and so forth to open up some of those facilities back up so these drivers would have a place to stop and rest and get something to eat and so forth. And you take some of the LTL carriers, as do FedEx, your Old Dominions and so forth. They operate their trucks during the day, and then a driver will come in at night and take it to Atlanta, take the freight to Atlanta and Richmond. We had to start cleaning those trucks out and sanitizing those trucks before they could go back out. We, in the industry as a whole, had to hire additional help to make sure those trucks were sanitized. And as far as the economic impact last year, during the COVID, we know throughout the United States, about 3,000 trucking companies went out of business. But on the good news, if you read some of the economic reports and so forth, the fourth quarter, they were reporting profits in the fourth quarter. And I think the trailer orders were up 97% over last year for the large trailers, for the trucking companies that order trailers, be it the small trailers and also the 53-foot trailers. So, and one thing that, again, the scales, we opened the scales up that weighs the trucks and so forth, so those trucks would have a place to stop and so forth. And after the enforcement did their job, the drivers could pull around back and start and have a place to rest and so forth. So we've had to go through a lot of changes, and there will be additional changes as we go through. But you know, you know, the trucking industry, we're one of the few states, or the only state in the nation that has an interstate that runs on the same road. One goes east, one goes west, one goes north, and one goes south. And that's 85 and 40 that run through Greensboro and Burlington and Mebane and goes on through to Durham. Then it goes north. So North Carolina is poised with all the new development that is coming to North Carolina. The Chick-fil-A distribution center, UPS is building a distribution center. Walmart has a distribution center. They're getting ready to build some more. Amazon is building 2 more in North Carolina. So we are still short truck drivers. I'll say that we're in need of truck drivers. Right now, we're about 91,000 truck drivers short. So we're going to have to find a way to get them in the seat. Yep.
Thanks, Rick. Yeah, that's that is one consistent that every time we talk to someone representing the trucking industry is the shortage of drivers, always there in all times, it seems like, as well.
So, and all the community college systems have truck drivers, not all of them, but most community college systems, such as GTCC and Johnson County Community College, we have truck driving schools. So we just can't produce them fast enough for the need that we've got.
Good segue. Sam, tell us a little bit about what's happened at GTCC, how the last year has been in terms of enrollment, in terms of workforce training, and those issues. What did you all observe?
Okay, well, I guess looking at this from a couple of different viewpoints, from an operational point of view, we've struggled like everybody else with a lot of people working from home versus being in the office. I will tell you, I've actually been very pleased operationally with the way we've handled it. We've come up to speed with technology. We use Microsoft Teams. So it's easy for us, instead of calling somebody, waiting for them to call back, it's been easy for us to, me personally, I can go online, I can see who's available, tag, conversation, go, right? And so that's been good. I think from an educational delivery point of view, it's the same trend. We're heading this way anyway for more remote education, more online, either online synchronous together or online asynchronous. And I think COVID just pushed us harder, faster in the direction than we would normally have gone anyway. And I'm happy with the way we're handling it. We're making progress. Our students as well. You get into a position, I guess all of us, you get into a position where if you have to do something, you do it, right? And maybe where some of the technology might have felt a little optional before COVID is definitely not optional now. So we've all come up to speed, and I've been excited about that. Enrollment has held relatively steady, maybe a little bit down. Previous downturns in the economy have always boded well for enrollment in community colleges, and normally because there's a lot of resources put towards re-education of the unemployed. That did not happen with COVID, and I think the employment picture seems to be, we all say this V-shaped recovery, and I'm sure not everyone's fortunate enough to come back to a job so quickly, but it's not this long, prolonged downturn that has been in the past. At least we hope not. And so our enrollment has been relatively steady, maybe a little bit down. We haven't seen the uptick that we might see in a normal little bit of an economic downturn. So overall, same struggles as everybody else with working remotely. I will say we pushed very much harder ahead with online teaching and the technologies around online teaching. And from a supply chain management point of view, really trying to use this as much as we can as kind of that teachable moment. What's happening in the industry now? How is supply chain having to be so flexible, right? And how are we teaching our students about companies now that are being flexible? How are they being flexible? What are some of the concepts behind that? And so we're trying to push that in the educational area.
In the first half of the year, the economic development project activity drastically slowed. I would say through May, things were just like everybody else. People were just trying to find their feet on the ground and figure out how they were going to do what they were supposed to do and survive. The site visit activity in person is where things have drastically changed. So at this point, like in the last half of the year, through especially in the fourth quarter, project activity soared. I mean, it was as if people, it was a reflection of kind of the way you felt after you've been home for a long time in COVID and you haven't been to dinner, or you hadn't seen your friends as much as you like. That's how this felt, like a racehorse out of the gate. And so that part of it is the same when there's sort of initial outreach from companies. What has been a challenge is making sure that communities have the resources that they need to clearly articulate what their sites do and don't have, sort of the benefits of them, which means that, you know, drones have increasingly become important, as Amanda will tell you, but now it's essential that you are able to fly over any sites or even in and around buildings that you're trying to sell. And so add a layer to that of figure out how to make sure that in a video, for example, your infrastructure and things like that are highlighted correctly and clearly. And so there's a whole new world of virtual site visits that has come out of this. And I think that part of what the need became was to make sure that communities just had the resources they needed to get that done. So that's been something that we've partnered on. And then doing business development from a chair is a whole new world. And so we developed, where we have stayed connected with a lot of our contacts around the country, like site location folks, for example, where we have invited some of our local North Carolina partners or someone from the Economic Development Partnership, and then we will tee up a Zoom call with site location folks. And so we've called them rail breaks. So it's a jailbreak for a rail break that we've had, and we did almost 50 of those, and I couldn't believe how the participation. We kept them small, which was key, but we've tried to, you know, find ways to put local economic development folks and real estate folks and keep them connected with that larger site development community and site location community, if, you know, that was something that they needed or wanted to partner on. So yeah, not being in an airport is, I'm missing it for sure. I didn't say never. I just didn't think I would say that, but I really miss it, Kevin. We switched to capacity building in some places. So for example, we just, instead of, you know, constant outreach, we switched to, okay, how can we, you know, stop standing on our front porch and kind of look inside at our own house as it relates to, do communities have what they need to, the marketing resources to market their sites? So we just started to make sure that everybody had a cut sheet. Does everybody have pitch points as it relates to the rail part of your site? So we've done a lot of that. Just as it relates to the rail industry, something that's been surprising. So first half of 2020 looked just like everybody else's first half of 2020. But then about mid-July, things started to really rebound. And then by the end of that month, particularly with intermodal shipping, they were back exactly where they were pre-pandemic. Because, and when I say intermodal, that means stuff in containers. So the soaring demand from the e-commerce sector, as I'm sure Mr. Cates also knows, has exploded across, I'm sure, both trucking and the rail industry. And I think that that's going to continue to be an opportunity for North Carolina, particularly with the intermodal locations that we've got in Rocky Mount, Greensboro, and Charlotte. It's going to be huge.